What's the difference between a winning marketing proposal and one that loses to the competition? I'm Kyle Racky, CEO of Proposify. As the proposal experts, we work with literally thousands of marketing agencies to help them create and close proposals that impress their prospects, beat the competition, and grow their revenue. In fact, I used to own an agency, and I'm going to teach you everything that you need to improve your proposal process to win bigger deals faster and stop competing on price alone. So first of all, why send a proposal at all? A lot of times when marketing agencies are just starting out, everything coming in is word of mouth referral and people just want to know a number. They're kind of pre-sold. But as you start to grow, that changes pretty quickly. And if you want to scale up your agency, you need to send out a whole lot more proposals to people who are a little bit more cold. And think about why somebody hires an agency at all. You have specialized skills that a business wants to acquire and to be able to execute really quickly and get a result faster than it would take for them to go and hire all those skills in-house and figure out how to do it. That is ultimately what you're selling when you're an agency business. So the proposal is a critical part of winning the deal because they're comparing you against other agencies. So that's why I want to talk about positioning first, because positioning is something that a lot of businesses and agencies themselves, even though they're marketing experts, miss about themselves. A lot of agency proposals start out talking about, here's how many awards we won, here's our great work, here's our portfolio. Yes, that stuff's important, but what you really want to do is say, here's how we're different than all the other agencies. And so there's different ways to do this. One of the most effective ways to do it is to have a niche. And if you specialize in a particular vertical, like healthcare or e-commerce or something like that, that can help you win deals with obviously those types of businesses. That's a very big strategic shift that needs to take place if you want to become a specialized agency, but it will almost always help you win out against other more generalized competitors. Another way to do it is with a horizontal. So that might be a particular knowledge about a platform like SharePoint or something like that. So if you just know how to build on a particular platform, HubSpot or Salesforce or something like that, that can be a way to specialize, but know that it goes out of date pretty quickly as technology changes or as competition starts to also become very up to speed on that particular technology or horizontal service. Another way to sort of position yourself is results driven. So this is really including the hard numbers of what you helped clients achieve. This is something that a lot of times agencies shy away from showing. They don't want to share like how many dollars in revenue they drove for a campaign with their, one of their clients, oftentimes because they don't even have these numbers themselves, right? Like they don't even know what they did that was effective, and so they can't share it. If you can get these numbers from your clients or be able to track it yourself and show that the proof is in the pudding because we have hard numbers we're sharing, that is a way to position and specialize against other agencies. Another way could be a comprehensive service offering. Now, there's a danger here in doing this because, if you offer way too many services and you say we're all things to all people, well, it's sort of like anti-positioning. It makes people think like, I don't know what you do really well. But under certain circumstances, that could be a way to position yourself is like one-stop shopping. Hey, if you hire us to do your marketing campaign, we can also do your video stuff and your social media stuff. So that can be sometimes helpful depending on the situation. So now let's get into the structure of the proposal. If you have your positioning in mind, then the positioning should really flow through the entire document. It's not just one line or one statement in the document, it's the whole thing. So you want to start with a cover page. This is important, especially if you're a marketing agency, you're a creative agency, you want to be able to stand out. You know that first impressions matter. You'd be surprised at how many agencies don't do this, and it's just a Word document. When I ran an agency, I was actually in one job competing against my former agency that I used to work for, and the buyer told me that they threw their proposal in the trash as soon as they got it because it was just a big Word document, and ours was really well laid out and looked great, and they knew that that's what they were hiring us for. So include a cover and ideally put your client's logo there. Include your own, but make the branding more about them, but just make it eye-catching, attention-grabbing. You know it's going to be the first thing that they see when they open your proposal, so make it stand out. Next, include an executive summary. And by this, I don't mean a summary of the entire proposal, A lot of people misinterpret that and they think they just have to like encapsulate the proposal in a bullet point list. That's not what an executive summary is, but it should be your chance to offer a really personalized message to your client to say, everything we talked about during the discovery phase, we heard you. We understand what your pain is. We know what you're going for. This is the problem you're trying to solve and why we're the ones who are in the best position to help you. Now, here's a pro tip is include a video in your executive summary. Most don't do this. According to our data, only 20% of businesses in general send and include a video in their proposal. But if you just shoot a video of you walking through the proposal and explaining it, this can be helpful because you can't always get in the same room as the buyers. There's somebody who holds the keys to the budget who won't meet with you. And the video is the best way to not just sort of show the images and text associated with your proposal, but to have them actually see you and hear your voice and be able to clarify things as they watch the video, so that they don't get confused about anything and that might turn them off. The next part is the approach. So the approach section, you can call it many different things, but the approach is just like your special sauce. How do you achieve the result, the outcome that the buyer wants in a repeatable way? You might have a standardized process that helps you get the result much faster. So just outline how you approach things. This isn't about specific scope of services. This is really just a high-level approach to how you deliver an outcome. Now, the next part can be the exact scope and deliverables of what you're doing. In some cases, you may not have all the scope in front of you, but this is your chance to be able to say, here's exactly what we're going to deliver to you, and make that really clear for when they get to the pricing. Now, the next part is where I recommend putting your About Us page. A lot of agencies will make this page number 1 because they want to talk about all the fancy awards they won. This is better around the middle of the proposal because you've already now spoken about them and their pain. And now you can talk about yourself and be like, here's why we're great. Here's all the awards we won. This is your chance to talk about that. And you can also include the team bios if it makes sense so that you can show who exactly is going to be on this account if the client decides to hire you. I highly recommend putting as much social proof as possible in your proposal. Like I said, a lot of agencies do awards, and awards are fine, but they're usually just more of like the industry congratulating itself. What's way more powerful is if you can share specific stories about clients that have hired you and results that you've delivered for them and what that process was like working with you. Now we're going to get into the pricing, and the pricing is arguably the most important part of the proposal because according to our data, it's where virtually every buyer goes first. As much as we don't want them to go straight to pricing, that's just what they do. So hopefully you've positioned your pricing in a way that makes it understandable, clear what they're buying, how you're pricing the services. They don't get sticker shock, but they also don't think you're lowballing or that it's like, wow, this is so cheap. They probably don't even know what they're doing. So there's a real art to pricing. I want to start with hourly rate because I think that this is where a lot of businesses start with pricing, and it's probably the most ineffective way to price for a couple reasons. It's bad for the buyer and it's bad for the agency itself. Here's why. When someone sees that you're charging hourly, they always are going to assume that you're padding the hours and that you're not tracking them properly and you're just using it to milk them. And that may not be true, but it's what people think when you charge hourly. At the same time, as an agency, you should be making more money the more effective you get at your job. And essentially what you're doing when you price by hourly is you're punishing yourself for being more efficient. You're saying, like, if the thing that used to take 10 hours only takes us 2 hours, then we lose money. And that just makes no sense at all. So it's really important to track your hours internally, but don't show it to your client. The next evolution of pricing is essentially flat fee-based, project-based pricing. So that's where you might dig a little bit more into the specifics of what you're going to do. You sort of like map it out internally and say, we think it's going to take us this many hours. You pad it a little bit, and then you present that final price to the client. The pros is it's predictable for the client. They know exactly how much it's going to cost. There's no surprise fees. The con is scope creep can really erode the profitability. So this is where you need to manage your internal operations really efficiently and make sure that whatever you price, you're not then doing a whole bunch of extra work or that you just misquoted and it's actually going to take you way longer than you thought it was going to. The next evolution of pricing is going to be retainer pricing. So this is a monthly payment for ongoing services. This is kind of the holy grail for agencies if they can get clients to sign up for retainers, especially with longer contracts, annual contracts, that kind of thing, it's guaranteed money coming in your agency every month. It's less of the up and down feast and famine that happens. Now, for this to work, the client has to have ongoing needs where they need to hire your agency every month to execute certain work. The cons of this approach would be agencies have to manage client expectations and make sure that they're not doing above and beyond what's included in the retainer. And because it's really difficult to renegotiate terms without formal reviews. The next evolution of pricing for an agency is going to be performance-based pricing. You could also call it value-based pricing, although there are some nuanced differences there. So this is where the agency is compensated based on specific outcomes or results, even partially. So they might have like a standard baseline fee that they charge, but then they get an added fee on top of that if they deliver certain results by a certain frame of time. So in order for this to work, of course, it has to be well tracked and easy to, find the number. It's not always easy to do, especially if it's more like brand awareness campaigns. But if it is something that's really trackable and measurable, then you could do this. There's also a risk factor for the agencies. If you don't perform, if you don't hit the certain numbers that you expect to, then that's going to factor a lot in your profitability. So you've got to play with that lever a little bit and see how much risk are you willing to take on and how much upside are you willing to capture. The reason value-based pricing is similar but not exactly the same is value-based pricing isn't necessarily based on a measurable result, but it's based on what the client perceives the value of it to be. There's a sort of a famous story about Steve Jobs. When he left Apple, he hired Paul Rand, who's like a graphic design god. And this was back in the late 80s. So he had Paul Rand design the logo for Next, which was Steve Jobs' company after Apple. And as the story goes, Paul Rand told him it was going to be $100,000 to design a logo for Next. He was going to get one option and get no rounds of revisions, and that was what the price was. And Steve Jobs paid him to do it, and that was what the Next logo was. Paul Rand obviously had so much clout and so much perceived value that he was able to say, like, I don't care if it takes me a day and I just give you a scribble. Like, the value of it is there because think about if you do a job for, let's say, Apple, and they make $2 billion off of it, it might have only taken you a day to do it, but surely you can capture some of that value and you're not just charging an hourly rate. So that's the concept behind value-based pricing. The final way to price could be equity-based pricing. And this is a really weird one. So you might be doing work with a startup that can't afford to pay you your full rate, where you're willing to take on a lot of risk and say, hey, we actually want to own shares in your business. Maybe there's stock options. Maybe there's different ways to do this, like own phantom shares. But in some way, you're really coming in as a partner and co-owning a piece of that business. And I've done this before when I used to run an agency. I really highly don't recommend it in 99% of cases. It's just you doing very cheap or free work for another company that goes nowhere. But it is something that, a small handful of people have made a ton of profit off of if they, bet on the right horse. Either way, the pricing that you put in the proposal is how the client is going to perceive the value you deliver. A mistake that I made in the past when I ran an agency was I went way too detailed on the pricing and I included things that really shouldn't have been included. So I might include like quality assurance as a line item that has a certain cost. And I learned that clients just don't want to see that stuff because they're like, oh, wait, isn't it going to be high quality anyway? You're like, yes, but it is an actual service that we do. So as much as possible, price in a way that the clients just go, cool, it's going to be X dollars for that pricing or package, and I'm going to get this deliverable at the end. They don't need to see all the internal guts of how many hours and how much cost goes into every element of it. End your proposal with the next steps. Just like in any marketing campaign, you're going to have a CTA, a call to action. Put that in your proposal. It shouldn't just end with pricing. It should be like, to move forward, here's what you need to do. Sign here or accept this proposal. It's great if you can put an e-signature right in the proposal. If you can just bake the contract right in, then it's just fewer hoops that you need to jump through in order to get a deal across the line. It doesn't work in every case. Sometimes a client wants a proposal first and then a contract if they move forward. But if you can just make it easy for your client, it's going to go a long way. And I want to end with this thought, which is it isn't just the content and the pricing that's going to win you the proposal. What's going to really help you is getting it to them quickly and making it easy for them to buy. This gets overlooked so much. I had a customer once who uses Proposify say to me, we beat VaynerMedia, Gary Vaynerchuk's agency, at a job because VaynerMedia was going to take 2 weeks to get them a proposal, and the client got a proposal from one of our customers in like 20 minutes or an hour or a day or whatever it happened to be. It was way less than what it was going to take VaynerMedia. They were on their high horse about that. They were like, we beat VaynerMedia at a job. And that I just use that story to illustrate how speed matters when it comes to proposals. And you can't get the speed if you don't have a really standardized process. So what a lot of agencies do is they take whatever the last proposal they did and they just go back and they copy and paste and they edit things, and always prone to error for starters, but it also just takes a long time to do it. So if you start with a standardized proposal template that includes like the full kitchen sink of everything you offer, every case study, every award, and then you just trim it back and delete the stuff, that can be a really good process to at least get documents out the door really quickly and in customers' hands. Hey, if you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to subscribe to the Proposify channel and hit the bell icon so you get notified for more content just like this.